Hello guys, it's me Bridget, and yes, I'm wearing the same shirt as yesterday because this is the same day for me, so yeah. Today we're going to be doing part 3 of chapter 9 of Women Who Run with Wolves. We will be talking about the actual events in the story. First, we'll be starting off talking about the seal mother and her drying out and crippling of her skin. Then Estes also told another story in the book that I wanted to share with you guys to help relay more of the story. We will then be talking about the spirit child hearing the voice of the old one and giving his mother back the seal skin, and then going underwater and like discovering the world of his ancestry, him eventually having to come back up to shore. We'll be talking about most of that today and then some more tomorrow too. So stay tuned, we're getting into that now. So Estes says in the book about drying out and crippling. Most of a woman's depressions, ennuis, and wandering confusions are caused by a severely restricted soul life, in which innovation, impulse, and creation are restricted or forbidden. Women receive enormous impulse to act from the creative force. We cannot overlook the fact that there is still much thieving and hamstringing of women's talents through cultural restriction and punishment of her natural and wildish instincts. We can break away from this condition if there is an underground river or even a little freshet pouring from somewhere soulful into our lives. But if a woman, far from home, surrenders all power, she will become first a fog, then a vapor, and then finally a wisp of her former wildish self. Estes then tells this story, which relays to what it feels like to be a woman drying out and crippling without her natural pelt. The story doesn't have much of a name, so I just called it the medicinal story. This is how it goes. A man came to a tailor and tried on a suit. As he stood before the mirror, he noticed the vest was a little uneven at the bottom. "Oh," said the tailor, "don't worry about that. Just hold the shorter end down with your left hand and no one will ever notice." So while the customer proceeded to do this, he noticed that the lapel of his jacket curled up instead of lying flat. "Oh, that," said the tailor, "that's nothing. Just turn your head a little and hold it down with your chin." The customer complied, and as he did, he noticed that the inseam of the pants was a little short, and he felt that the rise was a little bit too tight. "Oh, don't worry about that," said the tailor. "Just pull the inseam down with your right hand and everything will be perfect." The customer agreed and purchased the suit. The next day, he wore his new suit with the accompanying hand and chin alterations. As he limped through the park, with his chin holding down his lapel, one hand tugging at the vest and the other hand grasping at his crotch, 2 old men stopped playing checkers to watch him stagger by. "My God," said the first man, "look at that poor crippled man." The second man reflected for a moment and then murmured, "Yes, that crippling is too bad. But, you know, I wonder, where did he get such a nice suit?" I don't know about y'all, but I find that story really funny. Authentic. It's an adjective, and it is synonymous with an of undisputed origin or genuine. The definition is being actually and exactly what is claimed. For our lives to be authentically our own is all that we should hope for in life. That is the goal of life, in my personal opinion. Authentic joy, authentic strength, and authentic persona is all the goals of life. The story of the suit shows exactly what it means to be living a life that may seem beautiful from the outside, but that is not authentic to oneself. In the book, Estes says, "Whether it is the soul skin that is missing or the culture-made skin that doesn't fit, we are crippled by pretending that it is otherwise. But when we do this, life is diminished and the cost to ourselves is very high." When a woman begins to dry out, it becomes harder and harder for her to function in the hardy, wildish nature. Ideas, creativity, life itself thrives on moisture. Oftentimes, women who are experiencing this lack of authenticity in their regular life will experience dreams of being stolen from, raped, or killed, their family being harmed, all as signs from their inner soul psyche telling them what's going on deep inside. These types of dreams of crippling or injury may relate to a personal struggle or a societal one, but either way, they relate to a struggle that you as a person, if you're having the dreams, have some type of deep spiritual responsibility towards. As we have seen it, it is hard to recognize our condition until we become like the seal woman in her distress, peeling, limping, losing juice, and going blind. So it is a gift from the immense vitality of the psyche, then, that there is a deep in the unconsciousness, a caller, an old one who rises to the surface of our consciousness and begins to incessantly call us back to our true natures. As represented in the book, when the seal woman started beginning to cripple out and her skin was getting drier and peeling and all of that, eventually her son goes to sleep, the spirit child, and hears the call of the old one. That is the next event that we'll be talking about that brings out the authenticity to the seal woman's life. Hearing the old one's call. The calling of the old one will appeal ceaselessly to the spirit to be heard by the soul. This calling will represent itself as that like never-ending restlessness, that feeling that you can't ever get anything right, that nothing ever feels right. It's quite like depression. It's as if the soul had a rock bottom, this would be it. Luckily for us, the soul never has a rock bottom, and it will continue calling for you forever, but this is that feeling of it calling for you. It just continues to get stronger and stronger as time goes on, as you ignore it. Remember, the soul is the light. The ego has no light, and it is searching for the soul's light. The spirit is told its direction based on the light of the soul. Therefore, the old one calling is the light at the end of the tunnel. However, it is also important to note that these dark soul callings do not necessarily come from a place of negativity or lack. Estes makes clear in the book, in the story, the old seal rises out of its own element to begin the call. It is a profound feature of the wild psyche that if we do not come home on our own, if we aren't paying attention to our own seasons and the time for return, the old one will come for us, calling and calling until something in us responds. Thank goodness for this natural homing signal that becomes louder and louder the more we are in need of return. The signal goes off as everything begins to be two, in either a negative or a positive sense. It can be as much time to go home when there's too much positive stimulation as when there is a ceaseless dissonance. Perhaps we have become too intense about something. We can be too worn down by something. We can be overloved, underloved, overworked, underworked. Each costs much. In the face of too much, we gradually become dry. Our hearts become tired, our energies begin to become spare, and a mysterious longing for, we almost never have the name for it other than a something, rises up in us more and more, and then the old one calls. As we can see, though, from what Estes says, anything can cost too much, whether it's positive or negative. It's really about understanding and being in touch with the state of one's soul at all times, and being able to know when one requires solitude and coming home, and when one is okay to be in the mundane world and keep going. It's no wonder that we need to be in the dark sometimes. This teaches and reminds us of the age-old lesson that we should not fear not knowing. Estes says in the book, in various phases and periods of our lives, this is as it should be. This feature of tales and myths encourages us to follow the call even when we have no idea where to go, in what direction, or for how long. All we know is that, like the child in the tale, we must sit up, get up, and go see. So maybe we stumble around in the dark for a while, trying to find what calls us. But because we have managed to not talk ourselves out of being summoned by the Wild One, we invariably stumble over the soul skin. When we breathe up that soul state, we automatically enter the feeling state of this is right. I know what I need. For most modern women, the search for the soul is not the scary part. The scary part is the letting go of those things that society has conditioned us to believe are vital. I'm gonna get real personal with y'all for a second. One of the hardest things that I see personally for myself and also for most people of this generation, or who are even alive in this generation, even if you weren't raised with social media or whatever, the hardest thing, especially nowadays with how connected this planet is, this society is disconnecting from society. Disconnecting from the need to know what's going on all the time. Disconnecting from the need to share what's going on in your own life all the time. To know what's going on in your friends' and family's lives all the time. Realizing that sometimes you can follow your own way. Disconnecting from the comparison that we all live with on a regular daily basis is the hardest thing and the scariest thing that keeps us from being able to connect with our souls. Because the thing is, our souls are never going to agree with anyone else's. What is right for me is not going to be right for you. And as long as I'm looking out to see what's right for you, what you've determined is right for you, because you're out there sharing it, which is great for you, but as long as I'm trying to do the same thing for me, I'll never get there. I don't think that it's necessarily wrong in this day and age to share your journey. I think that it's beautiful that we have the opportunity to share so much of our lives and our journeys along this life. And I think that it's a great inspiration to people when you do find kind of a direction you need to go in, but you need a little bit of a push while you're there and like a little bit of extra inspiration or something like that. Like some of you, how you found these videos, for instance, just already knowing about the book, but just wanting something else to like give you some more motivation and understanding of what she's saying from another perspective. I think that that's beautiful. But the key is realizing that this is your journey and no one else's. Realizing that what may work for me and is not going to be what works for you, and what may work for you is not going to be what works for anyone else. And then taking the step to also say that it is vital for you to take the time to figure it out for you, unrelated to anyone else. Those two steps, I think, are the scariest things that I notice most people go through. And those are the things that I work on myself, is that I don't want to base my journey on anyone else's, because it doesn't work out that way, but it's hard to not. I want to base my journey off of Essie's. I want to base my journey off of what you guys say in the comments and how I talk to you guys. But at the end of the day, I'm going through this on my own, and I'm growing and learning on my own, just as all of you are. Before I move forward, the other hardest thing, because I forgot about this one, is also realizing that life goes on too. Realizing that whatever we've found to be the most important thing of our life, whether that be work or our relationships or our spiritual journey or like in a church or school or anything, all of those things can be come back to. You can find a place to support yourself and live and take care of your soul until your soul is good. You can find a way to go home. It doesn't have to be a big dramatic change and move, but it can be if you choose to. The point is choosing to. And I think that that's another big fear, is that we're constantly afraid that if we take any time away from the things that make up our life, whether that be keeping up with your job, keeping up with your looks, keeping up with your social media, keeping up with your family, keeping up with your education, keeping up with your church practices, just your community, just literally anything, keeping up with things makes us feel like we can't take time. But you have to realize that this life is for you, that you were born here for a reason, and that anything that happens within this lifetime was meant to happen. So if you take time away from those things, and let's say the worst happens and things go crazy without you being there, it'll be okay. You'll be able to figure it out when you get back. And you'll be a lot better at figuring it out when you get back if you take the time to genuinely, authentically work on yourself before you get there. So the next event that Estes talks about is the staying over long. There's no specific length of time or check mark that you can get to that tells you when it's time to go home. That's purely an intuitive thing. It's purely knowing within yourself when it's time to go home. But I think that the way that you can feel it and understand that it's coming is realizing when you can't make decisions anymore, when you can't think for yourself and know what you want anymore. That's when it's time to figure out you and to take a minute for you and to put your soul skin back on. Estes says in the book, "The return to home is particularly important if one has been bound up in worldly matters and overstayed her time. What is that length of time, though? It is different for each woman. But suffice to say that women know. They absolutely know when they have stayed over long in the world. They know when they are overdue for their home. Their bodies are in the here and now, but their minds are far, far away. They are dying for new life. They are painting for the sea. They are just living for the next month, just till the next semester is past. Can't wait till winter is finally over so they can feel alive again. Just waiting for a mystically assigned date somewhere in the future when they will be free to do some wondrous thing. They think they will. If they don't, you'll fill in the blank." There is a quality of mourning to it all. There's an angst, there's a bereftness, there's a wistfulness, there's a longing. There's plucking at threads in one's skirt and staring too long from windows. And it is not a temporary discomfort. It stays and grows and more intense over time. Yet, women continue in their day-to-day routines, looking sheepish, acting guilty and smirky. Yes, 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 I know, they say, I should, but. It is the buts in their sentence that are a dead giveaway that they have stayed too long. An uninitiated woman will believe that her staying over long is a sacrifice, a spiritual sacrifice, deserving of some type of reward. It's like she has a spiritual credit card and she believes that the more hard she works, the more she puts in, the more she should receive back. Unfortunately, and not really unfortunately, that's just not how life works. You're not more worthy of more love just because you kill yourself. You're maybe more in need of a break, but that doesn't make you more worthy than anyone else of more love or more time, right? You wouldn't say that to anyone else. Why would you believe it for yourself, you know? Another woman may be procrastinating and staying over long because of simply control. She may be afraid of letting go and fearing that if she leaves, everything will fall to chaos without her. But if everything in the world existed before you, except for maybe some things that you've created, but they've been around before, then they'll be around when you come back. They always are. They will survive. In the book, Estes says, she does not realize that by sacrificing her need for return, she teaches her children to make the very same sacrifices of their own needs once they are grown. And this goes for not only a mother, but also someone who works for a business or whatever else. You're teaching everyone that they're supposed to do the same thing, and you can't be the example for everyone killing themselves over pushing to make something happen. It's just not worth it. Other women may feel that their need for return may not be validated, and they may fear this. They seek permission from a million sources who cannot give it to themselves, so therefore will not give it to them. Also, they seek so much permission that they will never find the perfect amount of validation for the actual leaving, because they're leaving a decision up to a bunch of people who don't have the power or authority to make the decision in the end place anyways. Estes says in the book, when a woman goes home according to her own cycles, others around her are given their own individuation work, their own vital issues to deal with. Her return to home allows others to grow and develop as well. Think of it that way. now that we have given all the reasons to go home, I feel like another fear that and maybe apprehension that many people may have about going home is that it just seems like this big daunting task that has to be so special and mystical and sound like it came out of Eat, Pray, Love. But Estes makes very clear in the book that going home does not have to be any financial or physical requirements. There's no specific requirements for where it's done or how it's done. It's just something that must be done, and it can only be done once you decide to do it. It's different for every woman. In the book, Estes says, let us clarify that the going home is many different things to many different women. My Romanian painter friend knew his grandmother was in her going home state when she took a wooden chair out to the back garden and sat staring at the sun with her eyes wide open. It is medicine for my eyes. Good for you, she said. People knew not to disturb her, or if they didn't know, they soon found out. It is important to understand that going home does not necessarily cost money. It costs time. It costs a strong act of will to say, I am going, and mean it. You can call over your shoulder, as my dear friend Jean recommends, I'm off for now, but I'll be back. But you must keep trekking homeward even so. Anything can constitute going home, honestly, and it's not always the same thing either. Personally, for me, I feel that I go home in many different ways. Sometimes when I'm working and on set for hours and hours on end, I go to a porta potty and sit by myself, staring at myself in the mirror and talking to myself about how I'm good and how we can get through this and how we will make it through. Those conversations are important, vital, and life-changing for me. Other times, I really need alone time, and I need to spend a good 3 hours in the gym doing yoga, running, weights, and God knows what else. I just need that time to just spill out a lot of energy and think out a lot of stuff. Other times, I just need a good 15 minutes of yoga and writing in my journal in the morning to just like get connected with myself again. But in many different ways and in many different times throughout my life, I choose to take those moments, and then hopefully, as your girl gets her finances up, eventually I will hopefully take times to go home that can be a little bit more extravagant and fun, because we all know we would all love to take a beach trip by ourselves in the middle of Punta Cana or something, but we can't all afford that. It's not the most realistic thing. So that's the goal. That's something that many of us would love to do, but that doesn't have to be how it is, and you don't have to go home that way. In fact, I actually warn you, do not put too many rules on your going home. Do not turn going home into another chore. I hate when it's like, I feel the need to just like, I have to like take soul time. So it's like, I have to write in my journal every morning, or I have to do my makeup in utter silence. Sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes I just want to be able to hang out with people and be with my friends and all that stuff. But that, if you listen to the words I just said, is the key. It's up to what I want. Truly. It's up to what my soul wants. It's up to what my soul needs. Sometimes my soul needs communion with people. Sometimes my soul hasn't done enough work and doesn't need to take a whole morning off to go work out for 3 hours. Sometimes I just want to sit down and get to work. It's all up to how you feel you need, and the more restrictions you put on it actually can do the opposite effect and turn your soul going home time into just another chore in the mundane world. Soon, with too many rules attached to home, you'll need to go home from home. The final way that Estes addresses in the book that I wanted to talk to you guys about that may delay a woman's return to home is the over-identification with the healer archetype. She says in the book, women's heal everything, fix everything compulsion is a major entrapment constructed by the requirements placed on us by our own cultures, mainly pressures to prove that we are not just standing around taking up space and enjoying ourselves, but that we have redeemable value. In some parts of the world, it is fair to say, to prove that we have value and therefore should even be allowed to live. These pressures are introduced into our own psyches when we are very young and unable to judge or resist them. They become law to us, unless or until we challenge them. As powerful and incredible as women are, we cannot, should not, will not do everything. The whole world cannot be saved by one woman, which is why Wonder Woman does not exist, unfortunately. And even still, if Wonder Woman did exist, there's a whole DC comic freaking universe of other superheroes that are out there to help her save the entire world, because at the end of the day, one woman cannot save the entire world. It is not up to her to do so. Actually, one woman can only do as much as her soul permits and allows her to do, as much as it gives out the resolve and potential to be able to accomplish. In the book it says, "What the heart wishes to help is sometimes different from what the soul's resources may be. If a woman values her soul skin, she will decide these matters according to how close she is to and how often she has been home." Key. We will decide what we can do based on how close we are to home and how often we have been home, not based on what we wish to do, what our heart yearns to do, but what we can do. It is important to understand that we are not our archetypes. Esty says, "While archetypes may emanate through us for short periods of time in what we call numinous experience, no woman can emanate an archetype continuously. Only the archetype itself can be ever able, all-giving, eternally energetic. We may try to emulate these things, but they are ideals, not achievable by humans, and not meant to be. Yet the trap requires that women exhaust themselves trying to achieve these unrealistic goals. To avoid the trap, one has to learn to say halt and stop the music, and of course, to mean it." Okay, so that is going to be the end of part 3. We have talked about so many things. We've talked about what it means to live authentically. We've talked about what it means to go home, the reasons why we may choose not to go home, what home may look like, the restrictions that we should not put on home. Next, we will be talking about how one theoretically goes home and diving deeper into that. And we'll be talking about how often we need to go home, what we need to do while we're home, all that kind of stuff. So that will be in part 4. Can't wait for that video. That's tomorrow. I definitely will still be wearing the same clothes and makeup because I'm filming all of it today. Hope you don't mind that. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys the most. Bye! Woo! Wait, before you go, I'm sure I already asked you guys this, and hopefully you already have, but just in case you haven't, make sure you like and comment on this video and go ahead and share it with your friends too. If you guys enjoyed that video and would like to continue to hang out with me, go ahead and follow my Instagram, yo! I post on there way more often than I do YouTube, and I also respond to my DMs so we could be real friends in like real life, you know? Go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And if you're looking for more stuff to watch, this was my last video and I think you'd really like this video right here. So check it out. I'll be waiting. Go ahead and click whenever you're ready. I'll be waiting. Okay, hopefully you've clicked now. Bye.